you're all in for a huge treat here. There are people that come into your lives, and when you get to meet them, you already know that they're special. And then as you watch them grow and develop, they become more and more special. And Kevin is one of those people. I met you a couple of years ago at the AGD in Las Vegas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or somewhere in there. And he
Mhm.
was a young dentist just trying to figure out where these are some of my favorite. And Mark, I'm sure you can empathize. Darren, you've seen it before, where you see these kids and they're just hungry. They're hungry for knowledge. They're good people. They got a great set of core values. And they're struggling, like, where do I go? Do I go down this path? I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to be a great dentist someday. And he's like, oh, I hope so. And I'm like, you will, just stay on the path. And so to watch you become who you become, not only as a great dentist, but a great husband, a great father, a great leader for your team, and make your own decisions, it's just a joy. And so when we were discussing things that, you could provide, like, there's so many things. You're going through the Dawson Academy, but really talking about this segment. Now, here's a big piece of this. Kevin has been, it's funny when you coach people, there's a transition where they start coaching you then. And Kevin pulled me aside a couple of weeks ago. He said the piece of the market that everyone is missing, Kirk, is you got to understand there are people that are in their 30s that are associates that don't even know private care is an option. So because it's a different thing. So giving voice to this segment is really, really important. And so, Kevin, you've trained me and helped me in the conversations you're having with your friends, and just instilling hope in that segment of dentistry. And so that's my part of it. And Chris, I know you, as coaching Kevin, you have some other great things to say about this great young man.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of clients that we work with, and Kevin is by far one of my most favorite. It's just been a joy to coach him. Every phone call I loved. He just was such a sponge. It was fantastic. And, and we didn't always have good conversations. Like, there were some hard conversations we had to have throughout your learning and your coming into the practice, but you accept responsibility, and your team loves you, and you just have the great quality and the great combination of humility and just eagerness and earnestness. And we're both high eye disc styles, so we got along real well that way too. And it's just been my pleasure too to watch you kind of in the last 4 years just take this practice, just like from your dad and your uncle, and just make it your own and make it phenomenal, and start a family in the process too. So it's my pleasure to have you on.
Well, one intro, I hope I can live up to those standards, but no, thank you both of you for even inviting me on this circuit. I mean, this has just been such a sense of comfort for me, and I'm sure the rest of the people that are on this type of channel, because the last couple weeks have been insane, right? I mean, we don't have any certainty about what's happening and what's going on. This is my first crisis of my career. So I think I was like 4 or 5 with the AIDS crisis. And I think I was in high school still for 9/11 in college during the recession. So I didn't really understand how to navigate this. And I think that first week especially was very difficult for me. I'm fortunate enough to have some great financial people that you've had on. So I work with Engage advisors with Drew, and they've really cushioned me in a sense of making sure that we had an emergency fund, because I was big into personal finance, and it was something, and I was always reading up on that in dental school. And one of the things that all the books agree on is having one, insurance to protect yourself. So medical insurance in case something goes wrong, life insurance for your family, and then especially in dentistry, disability insurance, right? So, and with those policies, especially disability, you always have to have a 60 to 90 day term before you can claim it. So we've always been very proactive in terms of making sure we have some liquidity that we can support ourselves. And I think that's a lesson that most people can hopefully take away from that. So from my perspective though, it wasn't anticipated having coronavirus, type of crisis, but it was more of a disability type of protection. But I'm glad we had that around. But going forward, my main concern was my team, and I'm a huge team person, and my team is everything to me. So if I always felt like if something catastrophic happened, but I still have my team, we could always survive, and we will weather any type of storm possible. And I think that's just one of those things that I spent a long time just trying to figure out what was the right thing to do for them. And I just wanted to make sure that they felt like they were taken care of. And so I said, I'm going to just cover you guys for 2 weeks, until we kind of figure out what exactly is happening here. And then from there, we'll kind of come up with what we need to do. And I am so appreciative of this panel in this channel, because all of you have provided such a sense of comfort for me and so many dentists across the country. Because if you can actually listen to people that have been through these type of moments and can say everything will be okay. And if I'm sitting there doing the dishes or taking care of my toddler, but I can hear all your voices in my head saying, these are the things you have to do. Everything will be okay. You're going to be fine. Just, this is a great time for you to step up and be the leader you need to be. I can't be more grateful for that. So, I mean, Kirk Barrett, this is your highlight moment in your career. I do believe, because everything has come together for you. So many people, and you can channel everyone to say, hey, I need you. Can you be here? And everyone stepped up and really filled that void. So, and the same thing with the rest of the ACT team. I mean, Chris, I love Chris as my coach. I worked with ACT for 2 years, and I still continue to work with ACT, but that was a life-changing moment with working with ACT. And I'm just so proud of the entire, Barrett, LA, Chris, Adriana, Angela. I mean, every single person has stepped up to the plate, and it's a testament to what Kirk has built and the team that he rallies around. So that's kind of my little gratitude moment right there for everybody here. Dr. Hyman, I'm very, very appreciative of you, especially, and I listened to your 19 things, and I said, team, we're having team meetings every week, or we've had 2 meetings a week because no one has anything to do right now. And I said, listen to this man's lecture and we'll go on about those 19 things. So I want everyone to come in, and I think we got the onset ordered. We're ordering even more digital cameras. We got the ice lights going. So it's just one of those things that now's the time to really push these things that you recommend. And I really profoundly look up to you in terms of your leadership and your team that you built with your office. And now I would have been so appreciative to be a student of yours at Chapel Hill. So thank you for that, and something along those lines. But I kind of want to just take this moment and this opportunity just to kind of gear towards the younger generation of dentists that are listening here. So with, like Kirk and I have talked about, there's just a huge market of people that are, what do I do? How do I direct my career? I don't really know what I need to do. I don't have any guidance here. And I kind of got that idea because I have these discussions with a lot of my friends, when we have weddings and things like that. We're always just kind of gearing up towards these discussions. And I have been through such a roller coaster for my first 7 years out. So I know the title's a decade, so I'm a little deceitful there, and I apologize. But at the same point in time, I think I can kind of share some of my wisdom that I've picked up, and hopefully it helps, lead people along in a positive direction. This is a difficult time for everybody in the country right now, but especially the younger dentists, because there's just so much unknown. And if you don't have a practice, if you don't have things to go off of, I think it's a scary time, because it's just, I don't have a job. I'm not really getting a whole lot of the backing that you get from the governmental support. I'm just going on unemployment, and hopefully this is just going to kind of quickly resolve, and then I can go back to work. But you can take this in one way or another. You can be the victim here and say, woe is me, I can't do anything, or say, this is a great opportunity for me to better my life and improve and move forward, and kind of come up with a plan for what I want to do going forward. Because maybe now you could say, I never want to get myself back in this position. And if I can prevent or plan for this in the future and say, I'm going to be better off because of the coronavirus, I think that's a great opportunity to do so.
Can I ask you a question, Kevin? Because I know you're going to get started in your presentation, but what do you want the other older generations to know about this generation that is misunderstood? Maybe because you've helped me a lot. You coach me, and you're like, you got to understand a little bit about us, because you're how old today?
I'm 33.
Okay, and I'm 50. So we're 17 years apart, and sometimes self-awareness and understanding of other generations really helps with this. But what would you want older dentists to understand about your generation?
You know, I think as a millennial, I think we are a little bit jaded because we get that millennial title and people kind of come at us with a negativity, type of aspect. I think the millennials are going to change the way we do things. And I think also, Kirk, you kind of resonate with a lot of what you talk about as an person and in your speech. And if anyone's ever heard Kirk lecture, I mean, it's amazing. And the principles behind it are even more profound. So I think it's just kind of having a better balance of life and still work hard, play hard type of approach. But I do believe that the millennials are kind of changing the way we want to function and go about for the rest of our career. I don't know if it's something where I don't want to kill myself throughout my career to then live a retirement type of perspective, if that makes some sense, right? I mean, I think if you can really enjoy where you are right now, you're going to have a much more fulfilled life today, tomorrow, and for the future. So I think this is kind of an interesting time with the coronavirus, right? Because now we have tons of time, right? But the cool thing with my perspective is that once I kind of got over what I need to do with my team, I went back to normal life. And normal life for me is being with my family. And I structured that based on what my vision was when I started working with ACT. And my vision was, I just want to have the time where I get out of work every day at 2 or 3 o'clock and I come home and I have 4, 5, 6 hours with my daughter before she goes to bed. And then I have the rest of the night with my wife. And so when I look at these perspectives and I say, okay, now I just have all day with my daughter and my wife, but I mean, there's so much to benefit here. And there's so much, I'm not stressed at this point in time, which is kind of uneasy because I know that outside of this bubble, there is chaos here, and my responsibility is to just be in this bubble and stay out of trouble. But at the same point in time, I do have entire respect for the medical community, the grocery people, everybody who's supporting us in this time. It breaks my heart to see pictures of doctors that are in high risk areas and they can't see their toddler. And yet I'm here, okay, I can play with my daughter all day long. And this is a great thing for me, but it's also, I'm empathetic to those that don't have those opportunities. So I don't know if that answers your question at all, Kirk. I know it's kind of long winded there, but I think it's also something that I do want to help and support people of this generation and kind of keep moving it forward. And I know we've kind of talked about certain ideas in the background, Kirk, and hopefully we can push that along. But it's something that I think what really makes me tick is just helping other people. I really find inspiration in terms of helping and lending a hand to friends and anybody who needs an assistance of any kind, but especially sharing some of the thoughts and beliefs that have come my way and what I need to do going forward. So I guess kind of a little background on me. I practice outside of Detroit, about 30 minutes out of Detroit. I went to Michigan, so go blue. Graduated in 2013 and a great place to be. I loved Ann Arbor. Yes, as soon as I went from school, I started working with my father, which was such a great opportunity for me. But I don't want the people listening to this saying, well, he was just handed a practice and then everything became successful, right? Because I also had the opportunity to work as an associate. So when we moved into my uncle's practice, we split the time. So I worked at my dad's office 3 days, which was amazing. And it was great to have that support because I really needed to lean on somebody when I first got out of school, as a lot of people do resonate with that. But also I kind of got 3 extra days to work at other practices. And I was really intentional in terms of picking up as much as possible from all those different types of practices. And I worked in some heavy PPO practices. I worked in a very high-end office. I worked as a temp agency place. I worked in a Sears one day. There was a Sears dental office, which I didn't really know about, but it's a notch in the experience there that I do remember. But it's also something that learning from all those different experiences taught me a lot. So that's kind of where I want to harbor on. But for those that are looking from a perspective of what do I want to do at this point in my life, I always say, okay, let's think about treatment planning here. Like, you want to begin with the end in mind. And the end in mind are the people I'm looking at right now on the panelist, right? I mean, Dr. Robbins, Dr. Hyman, I mean, all you people on this are obviously the legends of our industry right now and at the top of of the game. And I think that there are 5 factors that each one of you all have in common. and these are just assumptions, but I do believe that I think they're all, pretty spot on. So the first is that you started off your career out of dental school without anything. You didn't have the gifts that you've been given. You weren't just saying you were going to be an amazing cosmetic dentist right from the beginning. You're not going to be an amazing communicator. You're not going to be an amazing leader of a team. We all started off as novice beginners, not knowing really exactly what to do. And then from there, then it just became something where you just became very passionate about education. And I'm sure all of you have taken a ton of hours of continuing education to better and further your path. And on top of that, you probably have heard the same lecture or type of lecture tens of times, 20 times, 30 times, but each time you pick up a little bit different pearl here and there, and you're just going to build on what you do. And then after that, I think the big thing that separates you versus the rest of the population is the fact that you apply the knowledge that you learn in an educational standard. So you learn things from an educational source, right? And a lot of people can memorize lectures, they can memorize notes, but they don't put it into action. And it's because of fear. We all have these fears, right? I mean, these fears are something where we're trying something new, it might fail, we don't want to hurt the patient, we want the best for everyone. And that happens all the time in dentistry, right? But the thing that separates these people on this panel is because they take the time to live in those moments of failure and accept that this is a learning lesson for them to grow forward with. And if you're going to be in those failure moments and you're going to actually resonate and figure out what the lesson is there, then the next time you go forward is going to be a little bit stronger every day. And then the next time and the next time and the next time. So you become really actually pretty good at the failures. And I think that's a really profound thing that I think a lot of people are uneasy about, is that you learn something and then it becomes, how do we do this? What do we do? I can't get in, just act, just take the action and then start. And if you can start and move forward with that, then I think you'll learn a lot of the lessons there from the good, but also more importantly, the failures that happen in that time. And the next thing I would say among the commonalities amongst everyone is that they've had amazing mentors. So no one has gotten anywhere by themselves, right? I mean, I think it was Dr. Robbins, you said, you've gotten this because you're standing on the shoulders of the giants before you. And it's so true, because everyone, especially in the dental community, we all just want to give, and I think we all have people that touched us in some point in our life and we want to pay it forward, and it might be a dentist, it might be somebody else that might be teaching you certain things, but if you have mentors that can teach you and guide you along, it really makes a profound difference in terms of what you do for your career.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, Bill, he's 33. At age 33, did you have all three of those? The education, application, and a mentor, or was it a little bit of a fumbled experience to get three of those?
I couldn't tie my shoes. This young man's amazing.
The difference between me and Kevin is that he's an old soul and I'm not. And there's a lot of wisdom here for a young dentist. I don't know you, Kevin, but I can't wait to meet you. So
yeah, I look forward to the day we can meet. That'll be a good moment, and hopefully we can get away from the computer screens and do that.
Yeah,
sure.
Scott, Darren, at 33, what'd you have of those three?
I didn't have anything like that. I was kind of still kind of just trying to stay afloat, and still maybe doing that. But I think that mentor is so important, and I think that he's so smart to get into this so early.
So, and I think about mentors, and I want to get really into that later in a second, but mentors I was thinking about this yesterday, a lot like parenting. So I have a toddler, and toddlers are all over the place, right? But there are times in the day when you need to show them how to do something. You need to teach them how to do something with words, but also sometimes you just got to let them do something as long as it's safe enough to learn a lesson. So they can fall, right? And then the next time they know, okay, I need to avoid that step, right? And that's something that the greatest mentors I've had have done all of those different things. They've taught me, they've showed me, they've, been somebody to be my cheerleader, but also they've been somebody to say, I know he's kind of going into a corner there, and I think it's going to be a great lesson for him to learn from those moments. And it's something that I really am a big proponent of, just having great mentors. I think that's the biggest thing. And I know that I can see all your faces right now. So when I talked about mentors, all of you looked up and lighted, kind of something lit up within you. And it's because somebody has touched you in your past that have allowed you to move forward in many different rights. So in the final thing that separates you from a lot of other people is just your work ethic. You know, you don't get where you are without working really hard. And that's something that it's a tremendous honor to be even on the panel right now looking at you guys and just talking and acknowledging that you've put in so many hours and so much effort and so much sacrifice to do what you do. And I just respect that incredibly. So what you did mention though, is all of you guys said, you know, in my 30s, I wasn't that way, or in my 30s, I didn't really do that. That's a lesson in its own right. So the people that are listening right now that are in this mode of this young dentist mindset, you don't have to be great at this point in time, right? I mean, it's just something that I'm looking at the greatest people out there, and they're all saying that I didn't have what this was at 33. So why not just start right now and saying, okay, this could be a good moment to press the reset button and figure out where I want my life to go. And then from there, it becomes a lot clearer once you have a great, you know, clear vision of what that is. So is there any questions or thoughts or anything like that while we're on that?
I would be curious too, like what advice could you give any other young dentists who are thinking, hey, I'd love to find a mentor, but you know, where do I go? How do I find this person? Will they say yes or no?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic. I want to kind of table that towards the end.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, another thing that's come up too is, yeah, I'm passionate about CE, and I'm curious as the rest of the panels. I mean, a lot of places you just got to start somewhere. For me, it was CE just showing up at these arenas and then going up and asking a question. Then I try to stay in contact with the speaker, but also just charting a path. Like, I think, Kevin, one of the things you've helped me understand is that the awareness and education of this generation is that private care is still very alive. Now, more than 20 some years of doing this, people told me private care is going to die. It's going to die. It's going to die. It never died. I mean, dentists were supposed to die when fluoride came on the scene, but that never happened, you know? So it's very interesting how this all evolves, but everybody's got to pick a starting place somewhere. Bill, Scott, Darren, Mark, where'd you guys start?
Actually, Kevin, I was your age when I started going to the Pankey Institute in Key Biscayne, and I'm looking like I can't believe I was ever as young as you. But I love your words and appreciate them. And maybe as a goal for your colleagues, I'd set a goal of doing 100 hours a year. So from that, do you go to Pankey? Do you go to Spear? Do you go to Dawson? Do you go to Coyce? Wonderful choices, whatever fits. But we're just real proud of you being here today and speaking up and speaking the truth.
Yeah, I hit my 100th hour last month. So, I mean, that's just something that you just kind of, there's nothing better than replacing. Education's everything, right? I mean, but you also need to structure what kind of education you want to receive. So I think that's the hardest part, is that there's so much out there and there's so many different demographics of things that I would recommend, first and foremost, getting as much experience as possible. So once you get out of school, that was my best advocate, was just learning from different people, right? So I worked at different associateships for like 6 months at a time. And it wasn't because I got fired with that. It was just more, I learned as much as I could there, and I moved on. And I learned and moved on because everybody offered something different to me. And I wasn't, as an associate, you're not that busy, right? I mean, no one's lining up out the door saying, okay, Dr. Kevin Groth is coming in. Now they're all like waiting for me to come in. No, my schedule was wide open. Now, are you going to be sitting in the back office on your phone looking up on Instagram? Or are you going to actually go look at the doctor and talk to him and see what he's doing or she's doing and learn the techniques and learn what they're doing? Or I went up to the front desk and I learned about the front desk, or I talked to the assistants or the hygienist and really kind of grasped what dentistry was as a whole. And from there, that was a great education. I couldn't be more grateful for the fact that out of almost necessity, I had to work 3 extra days just to support myself. And I'm so thankful for that, because if I just worked with my dad, I would only know one source. And not just credit my dad, my dad's a great dentist, you know, but at the same point in time, it was just one perspective. And if you can get many different people kind of learning from, and there were things I learned that I didn't want to do, and that was almost more important than the things I did want to do. But then once you kind of have this experience behind you, I think the next thing is just to kind of come up with what a vision is for your life. And this is where I met Kirk. And, you know, when I got my fellowship through the AGD, I was really heavily influenced by the idea I want to start working on practice management skills. And if I can really kind of take my father's practice and make it my own, I think I wanted to learn from how to do that appropriately. So Kirk changed my life, in many rights. And there's so many things about what he said that day that still sing true to me. Now, the reasons why those things sung true to me is because I went through experiences in the past that really resonated with what I was going through at the time. So if I had heard that lecture 2 years prior, I probably wouldn't have took away the same type of aspects of that discussion. But when Kirk started talking about the happiest people I know are the ones that have the simplest lives, that quote will forever stay with me for eternity, right? And it's just something that from there, I picked up the phone and called ACT and said, how can I get involved with this? And it's something that I'm really so grateful for that opportunity, because then I started working with ACT and it changed everything for me. But the first thing ACT has you do is look at a vision and write down a vision and say, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do 5 years from now. I really struggled with that vision concept, right? And it was just like, I was talking to my wife, I'm like, Allie, I can't get them on the words on the paper of what I want to have with my life. And I mean, it's nice to have, my wife is like my North Star, right? So she tells me everything that I need to hear, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But at the same point in time, she goes, but you've been through so much that you can identify what you don't want. And when you can identify what you don't want, then you can write down the things that do resonate with you. And I think that was such a great moment. And I think that everything became clear at that point. And I just started writing down all the things that I liked this about this, I didn't like this about that. And from there, I just was able to fill a whole page of things that, funny, a 5-year vision then became a year reality, which is so crazy. I mean, Chris, we talk about this all the time. It's like I blasted through that vision to the point where I was just like, oh man, I need to come up with a new vision.
Right. Okay. What's next now?
Yeah. And that was so fun, because now it's just like, okay, I have the balance of life I wanted. I have everything that I need in front of me. And this is something now everything is really coming to place as well as I want. And I think that's the real value of having a vision that you write down and articulate, because it really then separates the things that don't align with what you want versus the things that do align with what you want. And when you have that clarity, then you can start making some moves here. And I'm not saying the moves are easy, because it's not easy to let somebody go that has known you your entire life. But it had to be done, because this is not aligning for what I envisioned, what the practice was and what my life was. And making those moves really were a tremendous aspect, because now I'm surrounded by a team that is everything to me for my practice. And this is why I struggled so much going forward with the coronavirus, is because I didn't want to displace these people that mean so much to me. And Chris, firsthand, my team is something so amazing. And I have a life that I really love outside of dentistry, it's something that I have the practice that supports that. And I had that balance of things. And then on top of that, I became clear in terms of what I wanted to do from a practice standpoint. So then it became, okay, what educational resources do I need to take to learn and how to go forward from there? So then it became, okay, I've had a lot of inclusion from a local study club that was amazing here, but I had people that lectured that were Spear, Dawson, Coyce, Pankey, you name it. And it became very confusing to me. So I really felt like I needed to move forward with some type of philosophy. So that's when I committed to Dawson, and Dawson really changed everything for me, because it took the 90% of material that I knew and just kind of connected the rest of 10 dots. And I'm so appreciative, because that changed my practice and how I work. And from there, then you start putting into practice, right? So you're learning all this stuff, and it's just, I started doing cases again, and it was great, but things didn't work out that well. And again, it's like, live in those moments of failure, because those are the best experiences, because now it's like, okay, I am not doing that anymore. And when you can have those type of moments, then it becomes, okay, next time I'm going to do it this way. And then that's going to have something go wrong, because nothing's ever perfect, right? And then I'm going to do it this way a little bit differently. And it becomes a very profound way of learning.
Yeah. And Kevin, you've helped me with so many things, but I think one of the things that you just said is so important for people to understand. If you're watching this, it's not about perfect. It's not about, because some of you might be sitting there going, look, I wish I had a team, blah, 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 that that he's talking about. And gosh, she must have a great practice. You know, the important thing is this: all you're looking for is progress. And you and I had conversations in December. One of the biggest emotional setbacks is you were trying to get your leadership. You know, things happen, and they happen with me too. Like, nobody has a perfect business. And I think falling in love with the idea of perfect is just dangerous, especially in dentistry. Bill Lockhart said to me years ago, he said, Kirk, perfection's just dangerous in dentistry. He goes, I like the word excellence. Perfection's God's job. You know, if I can prescribe to excellence, there's some days it's perfect and some days it wasn't my doing. But I think the important thing is this: collectively, if you have a day, you know, I had a dentist in New Hampshire call me and go, look, you got to be careful because some people don't have lives like you're describing. And I said to him, I said, look, things aren't perfect, but in a day or a month where you have 17 days that you're working, or 15 days, let's try to make 8 of them good. Then you go to 9 days that are good, then to 10 days that are good, because you're going to have bad days. And over time, you're like, wow, this isn't so bad. You know, it gets a little bit better. Collectively, you feel a little bit better. You know, you have a little bit more confidence. So, I mean, you stumble, right? You've made mistakes. And the important thing, and I think all of us have made mistakes, is just keep moving.
Sure.
I think you learn best from your mistakes anyway. Your weaknesses, if you don't acknowledge the weakness, then what happens is then it can happen over and over and over. But if you acknowledge it and then say, okay, what am I going to do different on the next approach? Otherwise, you're continuing on with the same thing. And I like what Kevin is saying, because he seems like he's right on that mark. And it's hard to acknowledge when you're having a problem, and you kind of want to hide it sometimes, or put our head in the sand. And sometimes it's like this coronavirus thing, you know, like, I feel like it's a real weakness for me. Like, how can I deal with this? How do I solve this problem? Because we want to be problem solvers, and that's what I've been taught as I grew up. And I don't have all the questions. We had a meeting this morning with our team, and it was about what do we know and what are we going to do about things. And so that kind of, I look to my team then too as mentors, and so I look up and down the mentor ladder. And I think, Kevin, what you're saying is so real and so truthful. It's a phenomenal outlook, and I really appreciate this morning.
Thanks, God. No, I think you really ring true to the idea that, unfortunately, with dentistry, I think you're on an island a lot, right? And nobody is out there admitting the things that go wrong, right? And I think that's the hard part, is that we're trained throughout dental school to be perfect, right? But the reality of the situation is that we all have things that get messed up, and when things get messed up, you know, I think we try and hide it and get out of it as quick as possible. And I think that's the thing that I've really enjoyed with my associate, is that I'm the first one to mention all the things that went wrong with me. And, oh, this case happened this, and this is something here, and it does 2 things. One, it opens up a dialogue for me to teach her something, right? But 2, it also engages in a discussion that she now feels like she can be vulnerable to. And she doesn't have to have this perfection. And I invite the failure because it allows for her to learn and grow. And if you're an associate and you're not in an environment that allows you to have those opportunities to be supported like that, either you need to engage in a dialogue and open up that discussion with the owner, or you need to find a different place.
Can I ask you, I'm going to ask you a pointed question on exactly that. Because there's a lot of associates watching right now that have just been laid off. Kevin, after this is over, what do I do? Private practice? I mean, what do you think it's going to be like on the other side? Is it worth for me to go back and be an associate? Do I start my own practice? It's a pointed question. Like, what do you think?
I think that's just all about the individual, though, right? I mean, that's really, some people are not private practice owners, and that's just who they are. You know, for me, I've always been a leader, and I was looking forward to the idea of being a leader of a team. But there are other people that are not like that, right? So, I mean, that's just something you need to have a true, genuine discussion with yourself, and also talk to people around you that know you better than yourself. My wife knows me so much better than I know myself, you know, and Chris, you knew me many different ways than I could identify myself to. And that's the benefit of having a coach. And that's the benefit of having people around you that are my wife is my mentor. My parents are my mentor. My swim coaches from the past, they're all mentors. So, I mean, if you can go up to anybody and ask them, tell me something about myself that I don't know. That gives you an idea about what you want. But I think all starting to formulate a vision about who you are first, and then say, now that I know who I am, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And when you know what you want, then just go after it, because this could be a turning point for your life in saying, I was here during the coronavirus. And when the coronavirus happened, it was a horrible thing, but it was the best thing that happened to me because I made X, Y, and Z changes. And I hope, and if that happens to somebody, I would love to hear about it, because that would be something. Or if I can help to facilitate some change, I have all day, so just give me a call or send me an email or whatever you want to do. And I'm happy to and welcome these.
I think, can I just speak? Because I love you. And I think your answer was brilliant. And it's more brilliant than you probably know, because self-awareness is a big part of this in business, especially in a practice. Because for me, I'm a little bit strong opinion. I think everybody should own their own thing eventually. I tell my kids the only job security in the future is really like being able to chart your own path, whatever that is, not being subject to someone else's path. But the self-awareness piece, I took a Dan Sullivan course with Strategic Coach, and I came back and I told my team, I go, you have to do a whole day and find out what you're good at. And I went back to my team and I go, wow, I suck at a lot of things. And they go, we know. And I was like, and they're like, why did you take this course? And I'm like, I just found out I suck at like a lot of stuff. And they're like, okay, what kind of course was this? Well, then I realized like I was only good at a couple things. And so I spent the rest of my life realizing, look, I can't spend the time on things that I'm really bad at. And I think this is what you're really trying to say is like, once you have a coach or somebody, because a coach can see you better than you can see yourself. I mean, a coach can also say things to you if you give them permission to do that. So,
I remember some of those hard conversations. There was, I'm a go-getter, and I kind of overwhelm myself with wanting to get everything done all at once. I remember it's a specific discussion that I was on a phone call with Chris and Kirk, and I was in the car, and you kind of both yelled at me saying, you need to slow it down, dude, because you can't get everything done at once. And you need to make sure that if you're going to prioritize everything, then nothing is a priority, right? So I think that's, again, another thing about the vision is that if you can identify what you want, you can now spell out the directions that you need to go forward with, right? And if that's the case, it becomes a lot easier to say, oh, I'm going to get this done first, I'm going to get this done, and then I'm going to get this done, right? And I just think that's so important. But
it's a simple thing, and it's not always easy though, because I can remember being in your office with your team, and one of the biggest things early on that they wanted was for you to say, this is what I want. Sure. And just tell them, because you're such a nice guy, you thought, oh, I just want to be a nice guy, but they really were craving you to tell them what you wanted.
And some didn't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And right, if they didn't hear it, little forecast of what happened is that they all left. Whether I had to let them go or they left on their own. And that's okay, because they're not bad people. They really aren't. They were great people, and they supported me as much as they could. But at the same point in time, they didn't align with the vision and the direction we were going. And ultimately, now when I look at my team, I'm glowing. And a day doesn't go by without a compliment from one of our patients about how amazing our team is. And that's the best thing that someone can say about me. And for a long time, I felt like I had to be the person that was making the impact on these patients. I had to touch them in every single way and make sure that they knew that I was doing everything I could. And it was incredibly stressful, but now there are days where I don't see a single patient, and all of a sudden we get a review on Google saying this is an amazing office, and what Dr. Groth has done has been a tremendous turnaround from what I was experiencing. And I could tell the influence. I'm like, I didn't even talk to this patient. But yet this is what happens, because when you have a team that aligns with what you want, and I'll take a step back here. So we like personality tests. We do DISC profile, we do Myers-Briggs, whatever it might be. And from that book, Principles, Kirk, that we talked about, is that Principles by Ray Dalio. He has his entire corporation of people have a baseball card. And this baseball card is something where you have obviously your photo on the front, but on the back is all your stats. So if you have a personality stat card of this is who I am, and these personality tests have said, I am this way, and this is how you should deal with me, this is how I am, please don't do it this way. The best way to relate with me is yada, yada, yada. It's so much better to say, this is who I am, as opposed to hiding who you truly are. Because if you're hiding who you are, you're not living your best self. And if you can't live your best self, then there's no way of going forward from there. So we did this team meeting recently and we said, okay, I want us to all identify again the baseball cards, because let's go back to this and talk about this. And I said, okay, now tell me the theme between all of us, because we're all different. Like Dr. Hyman said in his lecture, we're all different. What is the theme here? And the theme was the fact that everyone valued the team first. Everyone valued continuous growth and improvement, and everyone valued relationship-based situations, whether it's personal or professional. Well, that's funny because those are my 3 core values in my office, right? So the fact that every single person, regardless of our differences, we do have the core. And when you have the core there, it's so essential from that moving forward there. But I think you need help, right? I want to move into the mentor section because I know we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So mentors, I think this kind of drives me a little bit crazy is when people say, well, you've had great mentors, but how do I get mentors? But there's not like some mentorship booth open that's saying, oh, I'm going to sign up for you to be your mentor, right? You have to earn that mentorship. And I've had great mentors that have come out of the woodwork from me not even knowing that they were going to be my mentor, but it's because I pursued them. I did things that stood out from those perspectives. Recently, every time I go to a conference and somebody that does a really good job, I write them a personal thank you note and say, thank you for doing this. And how many of the people in the 50, 100, 200 people are doing that? Probably not many, right? And then all of a sudden word starts getting out. Oh, I mean, the Dawson Academy has been an amazing community. I've really enjoyed Lenny. Lenny I met at his conference in Napa, and he sought me out and said, you need to do this. Well, I look at this guy and he's an amazing dentist. When he spoke, his knowledge is so high in this field. And I was like, okay, when and where, right? So you tell me what I need to do and you're an amazing dentist, I'll do it in a heartbeat. It doesn't matter what kind of finances is going to be. It doesn't matter what kind of time commitment it's going to take and how much time I need to leave the practice, because I'm going to do whatever I need to do to become you. So Lenny has been an amazing, amazing resource for me. And I've learned so much. The fact that I can listen to his little thing he had with you for an hour, and I was like, I have no questions, and that's so cool, right? I mean, and then I'll give you another resource, right? Zach Sisler, I think you're having him on here soon about photography, but amazing, amazing young star in the Dawson Academy. He's a mentor that I talk to probably 2-3 times a week at this point in time. Never have met the guy, but we met on Instagram, and it's something that we just started engaging in a dialogue here. And the guy walked me through a case the day after his 4th kid was born in the hospital. So he's in the hospital with his wife, with his new baby, and we're talking about a case I'm doing the next day. That's mentorship. That's something that I cannot express more, is just when you are a mentee, your job is to inspire the mentor, right? And I cannot say that again. Yeah. Your job is to inspire the mentor to be a better version of themselves. So when Kirk comes out and says, Kevin has flipped it for me, well, that tells me I'm doing a decent job.
Right. Let me go back to that, because you said something very important. You said, send him a thank you note. So I was trying to find the book. I have books everywhere. I've got them in my bedside table. But you sent me the best book ever. I'm going to put it in the feed. It was Ray Dalio's book on principles of life. I highly suggest it. And you wrote in the inside of it. And I brought it on a trip with me. And I go, honey, this kid, look at this kid. He gave me this book. And she's like, what is that? I'm like, it's awesome. So that's a perfect example. If you're a young dentist watching this, one of the greatest things you can do to inspire anybody is send them a book and write something on the inside and say, hey, just thinking about you, type of a thing. And, I put the book in the feed. I highly recommend it. It's phenomenal. And I have it on one of my tables here somewhere.
There are so many books and so many resources out there. And here's the thing, I kind of got really heavy into reading all those before I had kids. Not the case right now, but at the same point in time, when you read a lot of these, you start picking up the theme that it's kind of all the same, right? It's just a different story behind those books. So people are going to say, what is a certain recommendation for a book? I'd say just pick up one and start, and then they'll reference something and then they'll bring up another book that you need to read there. And then the more you read, it becomes kind of the same type of book. And it's very motivational because it's all a different story, but at the same point in time, the message is the same. Right. And then on top of that, now we have podcasts. Now we have all these different online resources. I mean, the fact that we're sitting here in front of a computer screen trying to do some education is amazing, right? So there's more information and more education out there than we've ever had before. it's just overwhelming in a sense, right? I would recommend, like I said, find your purpose, find an intention behind it, and then start with that. Don't try and do too much all at once, because you're going to overwhelm yourself and then you're going to quit, right? Master something. Kirk, I got really into your podcast when I first heard you lecture. Every time I was mowing the lawn, working out, whatever I was doing, commuting to work, whatever I could do, I had you in my ear with one of your amazing guests, right? I mean, Dr. Robbins, Dr. Hammond, you guys were all on those podcasts. I remember those. I was trimming a hedge over here, or whatever it was that I was doing. But once you hear 20 of those podcasts, and people all have a different message, but a different way of saying the message, but it's all the same theme, right? And at first it's overwhelming, but then you learn there's 50 of them that you listen to. And now you can start thinking the way they're thinking. And then now it's 100 of them that you're listening to. And yes, I did like 150 of these things. So now I'm taking action based on the thoughts that I was having that these people have put in my mind. The first time I fired somebody, I was freaking out. And I listened to like several of those podcasts that talked about this, and they got me through that moment. This is your vision. You have to stand for higher customer service than what this is. And in listening to them gave me the support that I needed. And the same thing with this coronavirus situation is I have the support from all of you guys, whether you know it or not. And I'm so grateful for those moments, because you've helped us and really have moved us forward as a communal, aspect of things. I don't know if that all makes sense, but
the chat is blowing up. A couple people said you should write a book.
I was going to say something, because you talked a lot about mentorship, and you talked a lot about education and study clubs, and that's been a common theme throughout the few weeks that we've been doing these. And I actually got connected with one of the viewers last week who had commented that, well, they couldn't do that, or we're talking about choice in practice. And so I connected with this person separately offline. And what it came down to was they didn't have a mentor. They didn't have someone to go to. And as we start talking, I realized, except she had taken a whole bunch of courses with great mentors, people who we would all recognize, who we know who would be willing to mentor her. I said, you've already met your mentor. You guys just don't know it yet. You just need to reach out. And so, you asked Kirk, you asked Kevin, what's different about him at 30 and us at 30? Well, in me at 30, I had already been introduced to my mentors. They may not have known it yet, but I was lucky enough to have been born in a family where I had met all these people as a kid. Kevin, you may have also. Some people didn't have that opportunity. That's fine. You have to make that opportunity by going to the courses, by going and meeting the speaker. And the opportunity is open to anybody. And what's a common theme you find with these people that you're describing, Kevin, is they all have over 100 hours every year. And the ones who say, I can't, or I don't know, or I would, and they've taken, their minimum 20 hours or whatever it is. And that's not a dig on anybody. Everybody's time is crucial, but there's a commonality to people who are approaching their vision or striving towards their vision, that they're succeeding because they've put the time in. There's no easy path.
Right. And let's not sugarcoat this, Darren. I stalk my mentors. I stalk like Bill. Mark blocked me several times, so I put Bill in
blocks me.
I put Bill in headlocks when I see him at a bar at a conference. Like I broke into his room on his, and his anniversary and jumped on his bed. Like you got to pursue the mentor, right?
Kirk, I didn't block you, but I'm about to.
I still have the broken glasses from Chicago, Kirk, when you walked into the cocktail reception we're having in the hotel lobby. And I tackled you. Yep. Just physical tackled, and my glasses fell off.
I think it was in the Ritz, wasn't it?
It was in the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago at the Panky cocktail reception, exactly where it was.
The best learning lessons are the side conversations between the lectures, right? I love learning about the material, but as soon as there's a bathroom break, I jump up and try and speak to anybody I can, right? Because everyone could be a mentor, and I can learn something from anybody. And on top of that, a lot of people, when we do these multi-day things, dentists like to have nice dinners, right? And when you get invited to one of those dinners, oh my God, it's like the best invitation, right? Because now it's like, okay, I just love learning about people. So tell me about your life. Tell me about your learning moments. What did you do? How did you do this? You better believe I'm paying for as much as I can. I'm going to buy that bottle of wine. I'm going to buy that appetizer. I'm going to buy you dinner, because that's so much more important to me than any type of continuing education fee that I would ever have to pay. Right. And it's just, I don't know. I think that's where I've really learned the most, is these side dinner conversations and these conversations between them. So, I don't know if there's any
Kevin,
other. I get these questions here.
That's my concern generationally, that the millennial generation may say, well, I can go online and get all the information, and the best learning is at breaks, at lunches, dinners, breakfasts, that you recognize this in an early age is phenomenal. And I hope generationally people recognize that there's a place for the big meetings and the hands-on education and going to the institutes. My time at Pankey changed my life, and there are a lot of wonderful opportunities, but I love that you recognize that at such a young age.
It's just, those are the blessings that you get from those conferences, right? I mean, I just finished the Dawson curriculum. It was in my basement on a TV screen being put up there, and it was just not the same as what I was hoping for, and the material was the same, and it was great. I mean, but at the same point in time, it was like, all right, now we're going to take a little bathroom break here. And I'm like, I don't have any of my friends to go and talk to and learn from and grow. And that's where I really want to get that. But I don't know. I think I've learned a lot in 7 years, and I hope 3 years later, we're not on a computer screen, but we're still talking about the things I've exhibited and grown from the next 3 years, and that to me is so important, is that continuous growth and improvement is so valuable. And I want to be a different person in 5 years than I would have been today, and learning different moments. And I hope that I fail. I hope that I fail big, and at the same point in time, I'm going to climb away from those, and I'm going to get up every time. And I hope that everyone else does too, because that's important. But I have an army around me to support me. And I have an army around me of my team and relationships and mentors that are all here for my best interest. And for that, I'm very fortunate. And I know some of you are listening out there, and I appreciate that support too. But that's all I can emphasize, is just kind of keep moving forward and use this as a moment to improve yourself and move along, and know this is a great tipping point.
Great job.
I've been listening to this stuff for the last 3 weeks, a bunch of old guys primarily. And I have to say, honestly, I'm the sorriest right now that your time is almost over. I don't know.
I have nothing else to do, but thank you.
I don't know that you signed up to be the spokesman for your generation, but you may have just gotten that assignment. So you said one thing, and I'd be interested to know your answer, and then Kirk's also. You said the happiest people have the simplest lives. So tell me what a simple life is.
I can give you that answer right now.
Perfect.
This was probably about a month ago. In Michigan, it's not like Texas, right? I mean, it's awfully cold here. And like, once you get that first nice 40-degree day, 45-degree day, which is awful, but it's sunny and you go outside. And there was a moment where there's a little park next to my house, and my daughter, I mean, she takes like a footstep, so many little footsteps. And we're going up and down this path, and I'm walking with her, and I'm holding her hand, and we're going down this path, and literally it's taking forever, but I had nowhere else to go. And I could have lived in that moment for the rest of my life, knowing that this is what I wanted. This is where I am. And that walking up that path and thinking, I never want this path to end. I go, oh, this is so what Kirk was talking about. And I'm living that moment right now. And I'm so grateful and so appreciative of that moment, because I didn't have that moment 4 years ago when I was working 16-hour days nonstop and falling asleep on the couch and knowing that this is not the sustainable life I really wanted to achieve. And that was such a moment for me that I will never forget. And that's all Kirk, and that's all ACT. And shout out to all those people before me that have done that. So that's my answer for that.
Great answer, Kirk.
Wow. I mean, what do you say after that? I don't know. Like Jack Shirley said this years ago. He said, if you're going to quote anything I say, put a date next to it because I reserve the right to change it. What I know today at the age of 50 is that I could be playing the back nine. We could, and so your perspective changes. And so my answer is pretty much the same as Kevin's, but mine's better measured in time. And I think time is the new rich. I really do. Like we have a lot of it now, like a lot of it. For you to even say I don't have time is just silly. Like, so I feel stressed. Don't get me wrong. Like there's a lot to do, but I think, and Kevin, in that moment with your kid, in moments that I'm like, I have so much time now. Like, I think the more people that have the ability to do what they want with their time are the richest people I've ever seen prior to this. And I think they're going to be the richest people after this because we can all work our tails off and make more money, but we don't get the time back. And I think when you can I waste time. But I think the more I live, the more I value time. And so and let me say this about simplicity. Simplicity is not easy. It's quite the opposite. Simplicity is hard. You have to fight for simplicity. Like I fight for 7:00 dinner times vigilantly. It's personally mandated in my house. It is against the law to have a phone or the TV on. You can go live somewhere else if you don't live by but that for me is simplicity. Do you know what I mean? My wife makes us go to church twice on Sundays now, and that is required. We have to watch the movie that we choose. You know what I mean? So like that for me is simplicity. And it's what I know today. What's your answer, Bill? What's simplicity for you?
I mean, it's a difficult question. I think the simple answer is that it's living, and pretty much what Kevin said, I'm going to echo it. It's living in the moment because it's the only time we really have. And I mean, this is not, unique to me. I'm not the one that figured this out, but thinking way down the road hasn't happened yet. You don't have a hint about it. And it creates anxiety, and thinking about what's happened in the past is just wishing it hadn't. And so for me, the simple life, I think, is, and it's the hardest thing on earth for people like us to live in the moment. And I'm not so much in the past. That's never really been my thing about thinking about the past. I have trouble staying out of the future. And so, especially right now, staying in the moment is not the easiest. And I think that's the trick. That's the simple life, living in the moment. Sure.
Well, I know we're running out of time, so I just want to I'm accessible. Just email me, Kevin Groth, Groth @gmail.com is a great way. I don't like Facebook. I got on for the purpose of doing this whole coronavirus thing. Shout out to Ashton, who has been amazing for what he's been doing to lead that community. I'm on Instagram too, but it's something that I would love to help people. And I think that's important that we can go forward and set this up as a community. And any thoughts or concerns or questions, I mean, I would love to, even if you want to come back, I can come back. I can talk about all the failures I made to start Practice Ownership too, because I cringed at the things I did before I started with ACT, and the things I would do totally different would be a great little spiel. If you want that, I can do that, but I'm big into sharing anything that I can do to help.
Absolutely.
So
buddy, we're so proud of you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's beaming over here. You're awesome.
This great profession is going to need a whole new generation of leaders. And so we voluntold you to do that.
Up for the challenge. So thank you guys.
All right.
Kevin, that was amazing.
Thank
Just
you.
so proud of you. I love it. And you correctly figured it out that none of the panel, none of us know it. We didn't invent any of this stuff. Brighter people taught us it. And what a gift. And my parting expression to you is, it's not too late, but it's later than you think.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
Cherish those walks with your baby daughter.
I do more than I ever would have.
Yeah, it's unique and unrecoverable. So just so proud of you. Brilliant words. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.